We are back with our discussion of The Last of Us Episode 8 entitled When We Are in Need. This is a click in the dark. I keep forgetting to say what our title of our podcast is.
Click in the dark.
You keep going.
I know, I will.
I watched Step Brothers before I came over here. You were like Brenda.
Sorry, the acoustics just aren't right in here.
All right. So, the Spaceman Movie Room, back discussing Last of Us as we have for the previous 7 weeks. You can find us on twitch.tv/Spaceman Movie Room, unless you're watching us right now on Twitch, which nobody is, to be honest. I see 0 viewers there. I'd love to have more people in this chat and talking about it. I will talk to you.
Yeah, we will talk for hours.
YouTube.com/Basement Movie Room. Twitter, movie_basement. And then you can find us on Facebook, facebook.com/Basement Movie Room, which I don't often say, but we have a group on there. Not a group, a page on there. I might start a group at some point so we can have some people come in and chat about things, obviously.
Yeah, why not?
All right, so let's get right into it. Thoughts on the episode, first out?
One of the better episodes
of
the season. I really, really enjoyed this one, and I wanted more of it.
There's never
enough. It's an hour long,
There's
but it's
never enough.
Not even an hour, but it's like, gosh, it goes by so quick.
It's way too quick.
Yeah.
This was like 52 minutes, I think is what this episode was.
Like, give me more.
So yeah, like I told you, this is like my favorite part of the game when I played it. Like the sense of dread. Even in this episode, you get that the sense of dread throughout this whole part of the game, and it's a lot shorter than the game because there's a lot more kind of interaction with David and things like that in the game. You heard like in the after episode, Troy Baker said the sawmill. There's a whole section where you go through the sawmill and you're fighting clickers and things like that in the sawmill with David as Ellie is. So
which we haven't had an infected in.
No, and we don't.
How many episodes?
It's like I said, we don't need them.
Yeah,
that's not what the show or the game is really about. The game and the show
is
more about relationships.
They're just kind of a side note.
They really are. They really are.
Yeah.
And I think. The Walking Dead, I always mention The Walking Dead because it's a natural...
It's similar,
It's a natural progression to mention that in this. But The Walking Dead, it did the same thing, but I think in a much poorer way. Of course, we're in the first season of this. Walking Dead went for way too long. And I think the first few seasons of The Walking Dead certainly had this feel to it. But I don't think The Walking Dead was ever as good as this show, in my opinion. I liked The Walking Dead for 5 seasons, and that's where I stopped.
Yeah,
I stopped at like five-ish seasons.
Yeah, it went way too long.
Yeah. But this show is just solid so far. But yeah, this episode, it may be my favorite. I need to go back and watch maybe episodes 6 and 5 because I really like those two.
Yeah, I'm still leaning towards the Sam and Henry episode. That's my favorite.
Yeah, that's real good.
Yeah.
I think this one may top it for me. I really, like I said, it helps that I played the game and this was my favorite part of the game. And seeing this brought to life in live action really is awesome for me to see.
I could see that would add to it big time.
It does add to it. Any other thoughts before we get into the recap?
Yeah, no. Let's get right in it.
All right, I'm going to do my best. I didn't take notes this time. So essentially, we open this episode with... we open with
David. In the they're in the steakhouse.
They're in the steakhouse, and it's showing David and his group. And David seems like a really nice guy.
He's doing a little Bible.
He did a little Bible study talking about. And there's this sign: "When we are in need, He will, help us," or something like that. Is what the sign says. I don't remember exactly what the sign says. So, and you see him reading a passage from the Bible, and a girl starts crying, and he goes over to the girl and she's like, "When are we going to bury him?" Talking about her father. And I made the connection that's likely the guy Joe killed. Yeah. In the last episode that stabbed him. And it is. That's what it is. The connection's supposed to be made there. So David says we can't bury him. The ground's too cold. We can't do it. So we'll do that once we get around to it. And we also are introduced to James, who is played by Troy Baker, who is the voice of Joel in the video game. So it's nice to see Troy Baker. He's a well-known voice actor. He doesn't get a lot of live-action roles, to be honest. He's just constant voice actor. It's like when you go to video games and you get voice actors, you get Troy Baker and Nolan North, especially in Naughty Dog games, because Nolan North was Uncharted, he was Drake, and in The Last of Us, Troy Baker was Joel.
Yeah.
So it's like we got another guy. We had Tommy in the Kansas City episode playing a character, but you get Joel, the main character in the video game, and it was kind of cool after the episode seeing Troy Baker talk about how cool it was to have this role, because in the video game it was very different. He talks about the sawmill and things like that.
He thought he was gonna end up being a clicker.
Yeah. He
and not
thought he was going to be some minor role, but he was a pretty major role in this episode. He's James. He's David's right-hand man, James.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, there's Troy Baker. So the opening scene,
like you mentioned, biblical names too.
Yeah,
for this community.
You get James, we get David, James, and you hear a name of Josiah as well. So it's all very biblical names in this community. I think that's the only names we get out of this community. I think they might have mentioned a couple other names, but mainly just those. So we have King David, of course, and King James.
Yeah, King James, King David. Yeah.
So that's kind of the opening scene. There's really not much else to say about that. I mean, it's just it's just an introduction to this group who we're not sure. We don't know. They may be good people. They may be bad people. If you play the game, you know where it's going. But they seem like they're just trying to survive. They're running out of food. The winter's been especially harsh. It's really harsh. You can see the drifts of snow and everything in the area. It's lots of snow. They apparently filmed this in Calgary in February, which it's like 0 degrees in Calgary in February. Like 0 Celsius, not just Fahrenheit.
They made it realistic.
Yeah. So we flash from there back to Joel and Ellie. Joel's in pretty bad shape. He seems to be. He's sweating profusely. He can't wake up. He's in bad shape. He's got a fever. Clearly, he's got an infection. So Ellie goes out, takes Joel's gun, goes out, and she's going to hunt for food because they need food. They're out of the beef jerky. She has a little bit of beef jerky left. She leaves a little bit for Joel.
I wonder what Pedro's getting paid per episode.
I don't know. It's not enough.
Last episode, he got to sleep through the whole thing.
He did.
And then half this episode, he gets to sleep through it.
Yeah, they probably shot those.
Easiest paycheck.
Shot all that at the same time, probably.
Yeah,
probably. It's all just him laying in that basement. Yeah. So Ellie goes out hunting. She sees a rabbit. The rabbit runs away. She runs after it, falls in the snow, and then as she gets up, you hear this clicking.
Yeah.
And you're thinking, oh no, a clicker. Not a clicker. It's a deer just rubbing its antlers. So she sees this just big buck, like
that was pretty cool how they did that.
Yeah, it was kind of like a sense of dread you get there, and you're like, well, you were even like, oh, maybe it's a deer rubbing its. You were right, it's a deer. She sees this deer, she posts up, gets the rifle on, shoots it, nails the deer, but it runs off. So, and this is a big part in the game. She has to track the deer through the blood much quicker in the show. She follows the blood trail of the deer. And we flash over to David and James finding the deer, and it's like, oh, who shot it? Can we just take it?
And they were starting to take it.
They were about to take it, and all of a sudden they hear somebody behind them. Ellie's come up behind them, and she holds the rifle on them, tells them to throw their guns away.
She uses her aggressive voice.
Yeah,
it was kind of.
The very aggressive
voice. It was almost kind of comical because it didn't really work.
She's not imposing.
No, not at all.
She's a small girl, 14 years old, but she does have a big rifle. So obviously they comply. They are like, they're being very nice. David's being very nice. He's a very charismatic person from what you're capturing. He's like, hey, we're not out to hurt you.
Yeah, clearly the leader.
We're from a community. We have a lot of people, and we're hungry, and we can trade for this. Like, you give us some of this, we'll give you some. What do you want from us? He's like, we got people. We need meat, basically. So he goes, we have supplies, things like that. She's like, oh, medicine. Do you have medicine, like for infection?
Yeah.
And right there, David's on something. He knows he's got something there. He knows he's going to get out of this situation. He's like, yeah, we got penicillin. He turns to James and goes, James, go back, get 2 vials of penicillin and a syringe. He's like, this is not code. Why don't you go do it? I'm going to stay here. You go do it. And so James leaves, doesn't have his weapon with him. And Ellie keeps the gun on David. And David's like, hey, we're not bad people. We just need some help. The winter's been especially harsh, and we're starving. Ellie goes over, unloads the guns, which is a smart move for her. She unloads the guns. They're bolt action rifles, 2 of them. She unloads both of them while talking to David. David's being, his charismatic self, being friendly, like, hey, we can help each other, and like, why don't we why don't we go in this shelter over here? It's too cold to stand out here and wait for him to come back. And he's like, it's 4 miles away. It's not going to be a quick trip for him.
Yeah.
It's going to be a while.
We're going to be sitting for a bit.
So Ellie consents to going in the shelter. She has him drag the deer into the shelter, which could not have been easy. That's an easy 200-pound deer, probably. It's a big deer.
It looks like a real deer, too.
I think it probably is.
Yeah. I mean, if it's not, they did a really good job on that prop.
Yeah. So they drag it in the shelter, and her and James sit there having a conversation. He has a gun, and you can slowly see her wariness kind of melting away because David is a very charismatic man. He seems he's
very
nice,
warm and inviting.
Nice looking, you know. He's nice. He's kind of telling her about
a very
things.
Soothing presence.
Yeah, he's very much so. You can see why he was the leader of this group he's part of, and he kind of slowly breaks down her barriers.
Yeah.
And we'll stop right there for a second to talk about it. I think David is amazing. I don't know if the same guy that played him in the game, but David's just like this in the game. He's an amazing actor.
Yeah, I think he steals every scene that he's in.
Yeah, he's kind of he's soft spoken.
You're like, what? I mean, yeah, this guy, he's really, really nice, you know, but there's just something about him, and he carries this kind of mystery about him too.
No matter what you fall into in the show, you're going to get a sense of dread.
You're always going to think somebody's out to get him.
Yeah,
but
they're always going to think that.
I mean, he didn't play the part like he's overly, like, nice and, hey, you know, we accept everybody.
Yeah.
You know, he gives a good explanation of, you know, I found God after the apocalypse.
Right. Yeah, he's like, I was a teacher.
Yeah,
I was a math teacher of girls like people like your age. You know? And now I'm a preacher.
Yeah.
He says, I preach for the Bible. I didn't find God till after the apocalypse.
Elliot's like, didn't you stop believing in that?
And he's like, I didn't believe till after this.
I didn't believe till after.
Yeah, which was a kind of a neat little thing there. But like this sequence of them talking.
That was a really good conversation right there.
Yeah, this sequence is in the game. Like her and him talking in this little shelter. It's a little bit different. And there's also a bunch of infected that come up on him in the game.
So
and they
this
go
is where you got to fight the infected.
Yeah, you fight the infected
while you're waiting for
you
James.
give him a gun, like because you know he's like, I need a gun, I have to help, you know, and she gives him a gun. I think she gives him a pistol or maybe a rifle, I can't remember. And you fight throughout this little sawmill area. But in the show, it doesn't go that way. Basically, he just talks to her for a while, and then all of a sudden, he looks over behind her and says, "Hey, James, it's okay."
Yeah.
You know, put the gun down. James is right behind her. Troy Baker's right behind her with a gun on her. And he's like, it's okay. Give her the medicine. And he's like, are you sure? Because, you know, James is just ready to end this right now. He has her. He can kill her. But David doesn't let that happen. And we don't really understand why at this point, because it was the easiest way out. They could have just killed her. He also indicates that he knows that they're the ones who killed their man.
Yeah.
And that it was a girl and a man there that ran off, and that the man was injured. And she's like, well, he didn't murder him. He was defending himself. And he goes, was he really defending himself, you know?
Yeah, that man had a daughter.
Yeah, that man had a daughter. He's laying it on thick.
Yeah.
He's laying it on absolutely super thick. So Troy Baker comes in behind her with a gun. They give her the medicine, and she leaves. She grabs the medicine and leaves, and he's like, don't worry about it. We'll find her.
We'll figure it out. Yeah.
We'll get them.
They know the lay of the land.
Yeah, they know where everything is around here. They've been living here for a while now at this point. So they let her leave. Troy Baker doesn't seem too thrilled with this, but obviously he trusts David.
But he does, but he doesn't.
Yeah.
Because in that first scene, he's like, even David says, "Do you trust me?" Yeah. And he gives a half-hearted response.
Like an I guess.
Yeah. So there's something there with James where he's like, you know, I'm not on board completely with you, man.
Yeah. I think James kind of sees what David really is.
Yeah.
And I don't think James is that way, but he's following David, and he's become that way at that point. So Ellie runs away with the penicillin, gets away from him, and goes, unfortunately, she just goes right back to Joel, which is not the greatest move in the world because she's 14. She doesn't think about this. They're going to be able to track her.
Yeah, and that's exactly what we said during watching. We're like, They're gonna end up tracking her.
Yeah.
It's not hard
They don't
to
go
track in the
directly
snow.
after her, though.
No, they don't.
They don't go directly after her. They go back to the town and get more men.
Yeah.
But she goes back, takes the penicillin, and in a tough-to-watch scene, injects the penicillin right into the wound.
Yeah.
Which I guess Joel's so out of it, he doesn't even feel it. You know? But it's kind of the right move, ultimately. It's the way it should be treated, probably. But it's a massive needle that she just stabs into that wound and gives him the penicillin.
Oh, yeah.
So she's hanging out with Joel, giving him penicillin, and hoping that he gets better, essentially. And that's kind of the scene we're watching right now. And I don't know how they do needles. It's crazy. Needles in shows. It looks so real.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what'd you think about?
It's like the old knife trick. It goes inside.
It just pushes up.
Yeah.
It's a dull little thing and pushes up. But yeah, the wound. Joel's wound looks like a bite. Mm-hmm. Yeah, we were talking about that. It looks like a bite. Somebody might think he's infected. You know.
Yeah. Wonder if that might come into play later on.
Yeah. You never know. But so Ellie's gets it to Joel and basically is just hanging out there, and we're in that scene right now, and she lays down with him and lays with him, and you see kind of like a moment of sweetness where she's kind of laying on his chest and his head, he kind of leans over on her, so it's like their relationship is fully formed at this point. You can tell it's fully formed, and he's identifying with her more as his daughter type. That scene, like the lake and the blizzard and all that
just makes great. It makes you so cold watching that. It's
blisteringly cold outside. And when Ellie falls in that snow earlier in the episode, I was just like, oh, it's gotta hurt so bad.
It's
so cold. Her face is super red.
There's nothing like face paint planting
they show
in the cold.
In the post game that they're blowing the wind with fans, and they're like, no, this is a tough shoot. You know? So we flash back to David's community, and they're cooking, and they bring in some tomatoes, and they're like, this is the last of the tomatoes, and all of a sudden the guy comes in with this big bin of meat, and they look at him like, oh, okay, where'd this come from? He's like, it's venison.
It's venison.
And they're like, oh, it's the deer.
Yeah.
It's the deer. And then
he's got a very non-convincing look when he gives them that information. So and at that point I was kind of like, it kind of clicked for me. I was like, wait. Going back to that first scene, there's something up here. So
so he says it's venison. They're serving all the people, and all of a sudden David and James drag in that deer, and we're like, oh,
it's not the deer.
It's not that deer, at least.
Yep.
So James and David come in, and they provide the deer, and James says, hey, there's probably rumors going around. And he says, the fact is, we found a girl. We think it's the man who killed our guy. And don't worry, we're going to get them.
Don't worry, man. It's okay.
Yeah. He's like, we'll get one.
Yeah, let's read a Bible verse.
Sorry. So he's talking to him, and you get the first glimpses that David is not a very good person.
Yeah.
Because the girl who earlier in the episode was like, her father's dead and wants to bury her father, the guy Joel kills, is like, no, we got to go get him now. And he goes over and like, we got to kill him. And he goes over and just backhands her, just slaps the hell out of her, and is like, hey, we're gonna do what I say, basically. You can't say things like that. That's not what we. That's not how we are.
Yeah.
Sort of is how we are. So it's kind of that quiet violence, and quiet venom that he does so well in this episode.
Yeah, they very heavily rely on the whole David Koresh.
Yeah, it's a cult
kind of thing.
Yeah,
the guy's name.
Cultish.
I mean, his name's David.
Yeah,
and the way he goes about things is very much like how everything went on in Waco. So,
there's no doubt. So he
even down to how he treated certain individuals.
Yeah,
so
for sure. So David sits down, gets a plate of food. with a bunch of tomatoes in it.
Yeah.
And
looks like a stew.
Yeah, it's a stew.
Yeah.
They're making a stew. It feeds a lot more people if you put it into a stew because you get a lot of broth and things like that. They can fill space. So he does a prayer, and you're like, kind of interesting. After slapping a girl silly, he sits down and gives a prayer, and everybody starts eating again. And just like I said, the quiet violence. Everybody's eating.
Yeah,
and
like,
it's just like
frantically eating. I mean, I know they're very hungry.
You get that shot of James he's eating. Yeah. It's very slow. Like, I'm a little...
He's forcing it.
I'm not clear on this. David, however, has no problem eating. He's just snacking down, So we flash back. Do you have anything to say about that before we go on to the next scene?
No, just the fact that they showed how everything was playing out so well.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I mean... Me not playing the games, I picked up on that pretty quick, and it's because of how they presented it in those scenes. And I was like, I think I know what's going on here.
Yeah, I think it's pretty... You're getting that sense of dread that you're supposed to get.
I think I know what's going on here from the bringing in the pile of meat.
Yeah.
And they want you to think it was the deer. And of course, the next scene they drag the deer in,
it's like,
and that just kind of cements. Yeah, it just cements like.
And the fact that they have a dead guy.
Yeah.
They have a dead guy out there.
You just connect all the dots, and there you have it.
Yep. So we jump back to the house that Joel and Ellie are in. Ellie's giving Joel another shot, and she goes up and is getting some snow in a bucket to give the horse some water. Horse is in the garage. And she hears people coming in. It's David's group. David, James, and I think it's 4 other guys. There's 4 or 5 other guys.
Yeah,
And she sees them, and she has to run back in. She runs back in the house and goes to Joel and says, "Hey, there's people coming." Basically, is what she says to him. And she takes the knife. And she sees birds. That gives it away. They've set off some birds, so she knows some people are coming. She goes down, grabs the guns, gives Joel a knife and says, "Joel, you have to wake up. There are people coming." And he doesn't wake up, of course. So she puts a knife on his chest and says, "There's people coming. If they come down here, you get up and you kill them."
Yeah, I mean, he kind of barely opened his eyes, though.
He's just slightly...
He's starting to come back. Yeah, but you don't know that he's, like...
Yeah.
Coming back. You think he's just going to be out this whole time, so...
Yeah. So... Ellie sees the guys coming in. She gives Joel the knife, tells him, like, if anybody comes down here, kill him. So she goes, I'm gonna pull him away from you. She goes up, and I guess there's 4 guys there with them. So she goes up, gets on the horse, starts running off to distract him, fires a gun in the air, and says, "Hey, I'm here, come get me."
Mm-hmm.
So she starts running off, and Troy Baker's character, James, sees her and shoots the horse. And it throws her, like, severely off the horse. Mm-hmm. It's like I don't know how she survived it because it seems like a broken neck for sure or something like that. But she survives.
She acted that out so well because she was like really dazed and like just like if you got thrown off a horse, she did a great job of acting that out.
David had said he wants
and
her
surviving,
as well. So Troy Baker walks up and they're like, "Oh, finish her off." The other guys are and Troy Baker's about to shoot her, and David comes up and stops him from shooting her. He wants her alive for some reason. We don't know
Shoots
that
a
reason.
rifle in the air. Yeah.
And when she leaves Joel, he seems more awake to an extent, and she puts a cabinet in front of the door so maybe they won't find Joel. And like I said, she rides off and gets captured, essentially. Meanwhile, the horse is dead. David says, 2 of you take the horse, the other 3 of you, go search the area, essentially. So David, James, Ellie leave, and then the other guys drag the horse, and then 3 other guys go into the area to find Joel, essentially. I'm just watching this scene again.
Yeah, it's so good.
Yeah. She shoots at him
so
a little
much.
bit. Yeah.
It's so much fun, actually.
Yeah.
In a dreadful way.
Yeah, it's a great little scene, great little action scene that's taking place. So Joel's in the house. We assume he's still kind of out of it, but a guy comes into the house where Joel is. He's searching around, and he sees behind the cabinet there's a door.
Yeah.
He goes down the stairs, and he sees the bed, and there's nobody in it. So we know Joel's up.
Yeah.
We know Joel's up somewhere. He's ready to do what he needs to do. And as soon as the guy kind of turns his back, Joel comes over and stabs the guy in the neck. It is a harsh scene.
It's right in the back,
right in the back of the neck.
Oh.
Like, yeah, this guy's going to drown in his own blood. And we watch it. You literally see this guy die completely while Joel's like
kept him quiet though. He couldn't scream.
Couldn't tell anything.
Joel knows what he's doing.
So Joel's taking that guy out.
And that shows the brutality of Joel, which I've been, they've shown a little bit here and there throughout. Yeah. He's supposed to be this badass, but this episode really showcases that for me, anyway.
Yeah, how brutal Joel can be.
Yeah, I mean, he's, like you said, he's not really a good person.
No, Joel's not a good person. He's done a lot of bad things.
This episode really highlights that for me. So, I was kind of happy to see that. In a twisted way, sorry.
Yeah, it's good to see.
Yeah.
All right, so we can stop there and talk for a minute because we got got it on the screen here. So yeah, I mean, we kind of talked about it. This is a nice little scene. It kind of makes us wonder why David wants Ellie too. Because I mean, typically these guys would probably just kill the person because that's what they're used to doing. Mm-hmm. So David scoops Ellie up, takes takes Ellie away, and has the other guys drag the horse off, of course. And that's when these other guys look for Joel. So Joel makes his way out of the basement at some point because we follow one particular guy, this bearded guy who had brought in the meat earlier. It's the same guy that brought in the meat earlier.
Right.
They're looking for Joel, and the guy he kills is the same guy who brought the meat. But two other guys are still there looking for Joel. And at some point, Joel takes down one of the other guys out in the yard. He knocks him out or something. And one of the other guys walks into the yard and it's like, oh no, and he comes up to him to check on him, and Joel comes up behind him and knocks him out as well. Right. And then the next scene you get is both of them tied up in the house. One's tied to a chair, the other guy's tied to like this piano or something over there. And Joel goes up to the guy and he's like, you're going to tell me where we are, and you're going to tell me where they are, where they took her, because he assumes they took her.
And you brought up, that's exactly what he did with
Graham Greene, and the lady couple from Northern Exposure.
It was much more subtle in that scene.
Yeah, a lot nicer.
Yeah,
he wasn't gonna kill those people.
So, yeah.
So Joel puts the knife in the guy's mouth, like this bloody knife. He stabbed him in the knee. Oh. It's like, I'm gonna pop your kneecap off if you don't cooperate with me.
Oh my gosh. The worst.
It's hard to watch.
Right in the knee. I mean, he's never going to be able to recover from that.
Walking. Yeah. The guy's not walking again. So Joel stabs him in the
brutal.
Knee. Yeah, stabs him in the knee and tells him, you're going to point on this map where we are and where your town is. And the guy's like, hey, okay, I'm going to tell you. It's not a town, it's a resort. Silver Lake, he calls it. It's probably a real place, I don't really know. He's like, it's at Silver Lake. And the guy takes a knife, points to the map where they are, and points to the map where Silver Lake is. And then he just kills the guy.
Yeah.
He takes that knife, he stabs the guy right in the heart, kills him. And the other guy's like, fuck you, man.
Yeah, why'd you do that? He told you what you needed. Yeah.
And Joe picks up this pipe and just goes over.
Yeah.
And he's like, I thought you were going to, check with me. He goes, no, I believe him.
I believe him now.
Kills that guy.
Yeah, because
that guy's head
that second guy being like, he told you what you need.
Yeah.
I mean, that pretty much gave him
he knew he got what he needed.
Reassurance,
at that point. But yeah, oh man, we'll stop there because
that was a brutal scene.
It's so brutal.
That just
this whole section is just brutal. With
I was waiting for that from Joel though.
Yeah,
to show that.
And I think part of what
craziness out of him.
Part of what helps Joel is the adrenaline here because you got that adrenaline pumping. That started pumping that penicillin to lose blood probably too because your heart rate gets up. Joel's he's in protector mode again.
Yeah.
That's what he does.
I do like how, when he wakes up, he's still weak.
Yeah.
He knows how to take this guy out.
Yeah.
The first guy takes him out, and then he just lays there with the guy because he's so exhausted. Yeah. He's still trying to recover. Yeah. So
we don't know how much time passes between him taking that guy out. I assume it's not long, maybe 15, 30 minutes or something like that. But it's enough for Joel to get that adrenaline pumping. And and Ellie.
And Ellie's in trouble. He's like, she's outnumbered. Like, big time.
I gotta nut up or shut up, you know?
Yeah.
So
that's my daughter.
That's his daughter now. Yeah, essentially. So he goes out after that to go find Silver Lake, and we flash back to Silver Lake with David and Ellie in a cage. And she's like, oh, why am I in a cage? You know, why have you locked me in here? And you have a conversation between David and Ellie, which is a great conversation. This happens in the game, but they did add that one line, like they said afterwards, where David is telling Ellie, like, hey, you're just like me. You're a natural-born leader, but you got violence.
You got violence.
She says you got violence in your heart.
In your heart,
and Ellie's kind of taking this roughly. She doesn't think that of herself, but it's true. I mean, what he's saying is true. She's just like him, except maybe not as sadistic as him, ultimately. But they have a good conversation in here. This is all, like I said, pretty much straight from the game, except that one line. And David's like, you know, he's like, she's like, why are you keeping me alive? You know, it's like, because, you know, you're just like me. I think, you know, these people need people like us. They're not going to do what needs to be done, and you'll do what needs to be done.
Yeah, they need God. Yeah. They need, you know, that scene really shows a lot what David is like. He's a fraud.
Yeah. He's a big fraud.
Yeah, he doesn't really believe in God, but he's using that as a tool to kind of keep the masses at bay.
Yeah, it's a cult.
Yeah, it's a cult
thing. That's exactly what
it's a control mechanism.
Charlie Manson did it.
Yeah.
David Koresh did it. Same name, David, like you mentioned earlier.
And that's the first thing that popped into my head with him was, oh, this is like Waco. Yeah. You know, I keep going back to that.
The funny thing is, there's a fire later.
Yeah, exactly.
There's a big fire later.
Yeah.
It's not started by the FBI at this point, or maybe David Koresh himself. Nobody knows what really happened there, honestly, and we may never know. But there is a little conversation with Ellie and him interspersed through Joel torturing and killing these two guys as well.
Their conversations between Ellie and David is some of the best parts of this episode.
Oh, it's some of the best parts of the series, in my opinion.
There's so much that's like, wow. I mean, you're like so engaged in every word that they're...
Yeah, and it's kind of Ellie discovering who she actually is or who she needs to be, really. And she's never going to be as sadistic and terrible as David.
Yeah, she's being told this by a psychopath.
Yeah. But she is. It's true.
Or sociopath,
she's got violence in her heart. I mean, she grew up in an apocalypse.
Yeah.
I mean, she's 14. It happened 20 years ago. She was born 6 years after
it's your nature.
The world died.
It's your nature at this point. Yeah.
She just can't help it. Now, she's handled it better than David has. She's not as terrible as he has been, but she knows she's going to have to be sooner or later, possibly. But she also has Joel to do the dirty work for her as well, because he's going to do it. He doesn't have any qualms about violence at this point.
He doesn't.
He is who he is. Joel's done bad things. He's trying to change, but when it comes to Ellie, he's going to do what he needs to do at this point. So that's pretty clear.
Such a good, brutal episode.
It's brutal.
Not just physically, but like psychologically.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot at play here.
Yeah, there is, for sure. It's
so well done.
Ooh, stab there.
Oh, yeah.
So we're back with Ellie and David. Ellie talking to David, and she's in like a cage near like a butcher. You see this big butcher table out there, and there's like knives in the background for butchering. So, you know, this is probably like in the resort. This is probably where they cut the meat up and stuff like that to feed the resort. It's a steakhouse, Todd's Steakhouse.
The steakhouse,
you see that?
Yeah.
Todd's Steakhouse.
Todd's Steakhouse. So rib steaks.
So obviously they're butchering their own meat in this steakhouse, and they got this butcher block. And Ellie looks out and she sees an ear underneath the table. So that's where you were kind of right. You were right earlier in the episode. They are cannibals.
Yeah.
Although David makes the revelation that only he and a few other people know that they're eating their dad.
Yeah.
Now it doesn't. They don't make it clear that they were killing people and eating them, but in the game and in the show they do acknowledge this a little bit. You as Joel, you go into this place where there's a bunch of like clothes and bags and stuff of people they've killed, like where they're storing stuff of people they killed,
which they showed
they show just a glimpse of Joel finding that canoe house, and then you find the bodies.
Yeah,
like
it's like
their freezer.
They drugged the horse.
The horse is in there. Yeah.
Yeah.
And you see the blood trail. Yeah.
Which is crazy because the horse is just sitting there, but they got the human bodies hanging headless. Yep. Which I guess they cut the heads off and they give them a funeral. They give them like a fake body.
I don't know. It's not just they're dead though. I think it's just people who wonder upon them as well.
Yeah, or whoever. Yeah, but like the dad.
Yeah, the dad that Joel killed. They clearly were eating him.
They clearly ate the dad at the beginning.
Yeah. I mean, but it does seem if they're struggling with food, they clearly are trying not to be cannibals, I guess, because they had 3 bodies in there.
That's the thing, too. Rewatching it now, I was like, normally, like, cannibals have, like, that weirdness to them. Yeah. And they like they always show, like, the shake. Like, in Book of Eli, they got the shakes.
Oh, yeah.
And going back and watching that one scene where he smacks a girl, looking at some of the people that are eating, there's some guys that are just like going nuts, and they're all kind of dingy, grungy looking, and didn't really pick up on that the first time around. So there's a little hint of that cannibalism starting to take effect on but David is unfazed.
No, he's a complete socialist.
But I guess they're mixing in deer and horse
to some extent.
Eventually.
Now David does go up to the cage at one point, and Ellie takes advantage of that and grabs his finger and like he's a pedo. He's a pedophile.
Yeah, 100%.
Pretty clearly, he was a pedophile before the whole thing. He's clearly because that's why he likes Ellie, I think.
And that's why I think he had control over that other younger girl at the beginning, too. There was something going on there because she was scared to, touch his hand.
Yeah, but he goes over to the cage and puts his hand on it. Ellie kind of goes over and puts her hands on it and then grabs his finger and breaks his finger.
Yeah, she acts like she's, interested in what he has to say. And
she breaks his finger. And she asks him if he's going to cut her to pieces.
There's that violence in her heart. That's that violence in her heart.
He does ask her if she asks him if he's going to cut her to pieces. He's like, I wasn't going to, but now it's a different story.
Guess what?
C word.
Yeah.
He drops the heavy C word, the British favorite slang C word, which you see who David really is in this scene.
Yeah,
he's a creep. He was a creep before the apocalypse, probably because he was talking about he was a teacher. So I think they're pretty much saying that he was that.
Yeah. I don't think I've ever seen this guy before in anything else, but he did a great job.
Oh yeah, no, this guy's amazing in this.
He's one of the better actors in this whole season. I think.
I don't know if it's the same guy from the game or not, but he was real good in this. But yeah, he basically says that she's done now. They're gonna eat her and leaves the room
because they believe everything that I say.
Yeah,
and before he was like, before I was you were gonna be okay. You were gonna get out of the cage. Now, just wait what I have to tell him. Yeah. So.
Yep.
He. Such a creep.
He is real creep, and it's wild.
Played it well.
So I think after this scene, I can't remember exactly what happens after this scene. I think it's where we get Joel coming into the camp, finding the camp.
Yeah, Joel is searching. Yeah.
Yeah, he finds a blood trail, and it's the horse where they drag the horse back, and goes into this little canoe rental place, and that's where he sees the clothes,
the bodies,
and the bodies hanging, and he realizes that these are bad people.
He's like, Ellie's in real danger at that point.
And we're also at a blizzard. This is where we saw after the episode they were taking fans to blow the snow around and all that. So Joel's hunting in Ellie.
While watching, I was like, they're trying to make it look like a blizzard.
Yeah.
But it really wasn't.
It's
that
not as
bad.
Harsh. In the game, it's like a crazy
because
blizzard.
In the background, I could see I think a couple times I saw blue sky.
Yeah.
I think they kind of messed that up. But, either way, who cares?
Yeah.
Little nitpicky.
So So Joel finds the bodies and things like that. He knows what he's dealing with at this point. And in the game, you go through this whole section where you're sneaking through here and trying to find Ellie. And you're also interspersing with playing as Ellie and Joel, if I remember correctly. But the next scene essentially is James and David coming back into the room, dragging Ellie out of the cage and throwing her onto the butcher block. And they're going to cut her up. Yeah. And she goes, no, you can't do this. I'm infected. And at that point, she's already she bit David while they were dragging her out, and she's like, "I'm infected, and now you're infected too." And she raise up her sleeve, and you see the bite on her arm, and he's like, "Oh, there's no way, no way. She would already have been turned by now." And James is not sure. James is like, "How do you know?"
Yeah, his loyalty's wavering anyway. So
and they have the cleaver that they put into the butcher block right beside her head to see her infection, and they're like, "Oh no!" And David's like, "No, you're not infected. That's not true. You're lying. It's fake." And Ellie takes this chance. She grabs the cleaver and just buries it in Troy Baker's neck. And just like there's blood spurting, and he falls against the wall and dies. And David kind of falls back a little bit when that happens, and Ellie jumps off the butcher block, runs out. He takes a couple shots at her. And she's out in the Todd's Steakhouse area. And this, like I said, this part of the game was so hard. But Ellie finds a fire, and she grabs like a little burning ember out of the fire, like a stick with an ember on the end, and has it as a weapon. And as soon as David walks in, she throws it at him and catches a curtain on fire. So the place starts burning. And David looks at it, and he's like,
"Waco."
He's like, "Oh, okay. Waco again, yeah." He's like, okay. So he's like, he just ignores the fire. It's going to happen. So he's after her, and she's running around. And sorry, I'm laughing at my text that I'm getting right now. She's running around the restaurant, hiding from David. And David's like, we could have. He's essentially saying, you could have been good here. You could have been with us, and now you're going to have to die.
Yeah.
And so she's avoiding him. And he's looking around after her. And this sequence is a lot longer in the game, of course. But ultimately, she finds a knife, and she runs out and stabs him in the gut. And they get in a little tussle. And she ultimately knocks him down and sees the cleaver there that he had brought out. And she grabs the cleaver and just goes to town.
She starts wailing.
Man, they don't show it. You see blood splashing up on her face just over and over again.
That was that Heart of Violence coming out in full-fledged.
That is the full Heart of Violence. Yeah. But it's self-defense as well. So it's not as extreme as you think it is ultimately. Because, of all the people that die in this show, he probably deserves it one of the most, essentially. James probably deserves it too, although he seemed a little bit questioning of the whole thing. So she kills him, hits him with that cleaver so many times. It's crazy. I'm like, are they going to show it? They did not show it. And after she does that, the building's on fire. She goes through a back door of the building, runs out, and somebody comes up behind her and grabs her. It's Joel. Joel's found her. And she freaks out. It's like, let go of me, let go of me. And he turns around. It's like, it's me, Ellie, it's me. And she just embraces him and puts her head on his shoulder, and he says, "Don't worry, baby girl."
Yeah.
Which is what he called Sarah, of course, in the first episode. And you're just
notice in this scene too,
complete.
In the scene in the steakhouse when the curtains catch on fire.
Yeah.
It's light.
Yeah.
And then it's like nighttime.
Gets a little darker in there.
Yeah.
It's a little darker in there, but yeah.
And then she runs outside, and it's clearly daytime too.
Yeah.
So
and Joel and her start walking off to go head out on their journey, and credits.
Yep.
So yeah.
And you get mad because there's not enough.
Not enough time.
So, yeah, it was a really good episode, man. This is probably my second favorite behind. I'm still Sam and Henry is still number
this is
one
my favorite, I think,
for me. I guess just because the emotional weight that came with that one,
Yeah.
I didn't see all the. I didn't play the game, so I didn't know what was coming, and it was really well acted. But this one was like. It's
hardcore.
This is
Yeah, it's hardcore whole way through. Hardcore.
This is kind of what. This episode is kind of what I've been expecting or waiting for when it comes to this show. Other than I need more infected, which we haven't had in a few episodes, which is crazy.
Yeah.
But like you said, this show is not about the infected. They're a side note.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, they certainly are. Yeah, it's a great episode.
Oh, I enjoyed it.
Really great episode. I thought it was great.
Yeah, David, the guy that played David, outstanding.
Yeah, he is.
Outstanding.
He's terrific.
Everybody in the episode. So. Yeah.
All right. So that's it.
Yeah.
Well, we will be back next week for the season finale, unfortunately, because I could go year-round with this show for sure.
Mm-hmm.
And that is the end of the episode. And like I said, you can find us on twitch.tv/Basement Movie Room and youtube.com/@Basement Movie Room, or on Twitter @movie_basement, or on Facebook, facebook.com/Basement Movie Room.
Yeah.
We will see you next week. If you want to email us, you can email us at basementmovieroompodcast@gmail.com. And that's it.
Yep.
We'll see you next time.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Ding. Oh, you're empty.